will call this meeting of the Building and Grounds Committee to order November 29th. Our first order of business, we have several sets of minutes to accept. 9/11, 9/26, 10/13, 10/27, and 11/9. Is there any discussion from anyone on the committee about any of those? Okay, great. So seeing
I
that,
move to accept
John moves to
several minutes.
several sets of minutes. Thank you, Christine, for taking those. Any objections?
I think we had to do it individually. We were told by the lawyer last year.
Okay, so the 9/11 meetings. Everyone accept?
Yes.
Great. 9/26.
Mhm.
Excellent. 10/13. 10/27
Yes.
and 11/9.
We didn't have a second, which is critical for Beth's approval of our minutes. So we have a second. but
Second, John.
All of them.
All of them, I second, 9/11,
Whatever.
9/26, 10/13, 10/27,
Do them all
and
together.
11/9.
I don't know. That's what we were told last year by our SEU attorney.
Well, thank you for sharing that information with us, Greg. And thanks, Christine, for making
For
the seconds.
years, we've been doing it all together.
Well, I don't know if Beth approves of that.
All right.
So Beth isn't here, but we are now in order and we have everything taken care of on that end. So we'll move forward. Our first and order of business today is to go through the cost estimates that were sent from DEW on Wilkins option 1 and 2. Roger, do you want to lead the charge on going through those, and then we'll have time for questions? Does
Yeah,
that make sense to
absolutely.
you?
Absolutely. I'll start and then Matt, I'll defer to you as far as going through the estimate. So the last 3 weeks, November 1st, DEW received the scope of work from Banwell and the conceptual designs. So they have been working on this. I received their first draft Friday of last week. I had the opportunity to go through it, and then Matt and I met on Monday a couple of different times throughout the day to refine what we're actually looking at here today. The estimate breakdown is broken down into site work, then actually building construction costs, what it takes to actually build the building. It breaks down the construction manager's expenses, and then we have our soft cost, which is our owner expenses as well, which I can go through those items. Matt and I did work together for the owner expenses on just temporary structures, because that is determined on how we phase both options. Once we get to that, we'll see that one option does need more portables than others, but I will share my screen, and if Matt, you want to just take over and kind of go over how you went through the estimate.
Correct. So as Roger pulls this up, I want to make sure that everybody understands some construction nuances. And the nuances I'm trying to highlight here really are the differences between a bid and an estimate. So this is not a bid, which I think most everybody in this room understands that, but the general public sometimes doesn't understand this. So we did not go out and ask a plumber or an electrician or a roofer for any scopes of work or bids. What we did was we took the information, which is conceptual / I'll just say conceptual, it's not schematic. I don't think Brad would be offended by that. It's a conceptual floor plan with some visuals and a narrative on the types of construction expected. So we took that concept, we sort of translate that into construction and numbers, and we base this into our historical database. We benchmark it against recent trends. We benchmark it against current bids that we received for other projects. And if those other projects and those other bids are applicable, we will reference those values and compare it to what we're trying to do here. We then also have to take out a crystal ball to some extent and look into the future. What will the subcontractor market look like in 25? What will something look like in 26? What are industry experts saying? What has inflation been over the last few years, et cetera? So those are all things that go into this. This is a professional opinion, DEW's professional opinion of what was presented to us for these concepts. Concept or option number 1 is essentially, to refresh everybody's memory, concept number 1 is the where you're really retaining most of the school. Well, you're retaining all of the school, Wilkins School in its existing condition, and putting additions around the facility, some larger than others. Option 2 is more similar to where we were a couple of years ago with where we were keeping the multi-purpose room, and then essentially demolishing everything else and building an all-new school. The square footages are smaller than where we were before, but the square footages between the two options, current 2023 options, options 1 and option 2, those also vary slightly. You know, I think it's like 8,000 square feet or so difference between the two options. So from a high level, I just want to make sure we understand that these are understood to be opinions of cost based on, you know, a professional construction manager that does a lot of work in the region, and that these are not bids. So before I keep blabbering on about options 1 and 2 and all these numbers, is there an estimated duration that Roger or others you want to keep me within? Like, Matt, can you just do this in 5 minutes or less and then let the questions flow? Or do you want detail? Like, can somebody help me define how long I should be talking?
Let's give this 20 minutes to go through. We have an hour and a half for this portion of the meeting. We're 15 minutes in. Let's go through 20 minutes of high level and in some detail where you feel appropriate.
Okay. So Roger, would you like me to stay option 1, go through it in 10 minutes and then kind of transition to option 2 and run through it in 10 minutes roughly?
Yes, and where comparable, like site work, obviously we can hit those two options at the same time, those categories.
10-4. Okay. So DEW did do a detailed takeoff. So these numbers in the format that you're looking at right here is what the SAU assembled last time. And so what we're trying to do is, if anybody had this document last time, we're sort of able to sort of compare, right? I call it, or DEW calls it a variance report, right? This is not our report. This is an SAU report, but it's sort of acting like a variance. What changed and why between then and now, and or compare project 1, option 1 to option 2, right? So we can always go back and look at these things and do a comparison. So option 1, as mentioned, was an addition. I have like stereo because I have Roger's thing over here, but it's also on the screen over here. So it's back on track. Option 1 is the additions to the existing school. So option 1, site work, and option 2, site work, really did not change. And I think, Roger, I may want you to hide option L now because I don't want to get into the comparison right away. So thank you. So option 1 site, option 2 site, they're very similar. The option, they're different from the original slightly, in that there's some additional parking that was drawn back by the gymnasium, maybe an extension of a retaining wall back there as well. But essentially the concept of the site is still the same as it was. There's still this loop that goes up to the upper athletic field to get, I forget the name of the road, but there was a lot of talk about that road and traffic. But say it again.
Jones Road.
Yes. So that the site concept then and now is very similar. So option 1 and option 2 essentially fit and work on the site very similarly. So there's really, at this level, there's really no difference. There is a difference in maybe some wetlands impact with option 1 because the road that loops around the building is not as graceful as it can be in option 2. You can still circulate easily with large vehicles, but it's not a graceful movement. It's more of a sort of a 90-degree bend to get around. I don't know what wing that is, but anyways, so the site work essentially the same, and the site work really didn't change all that much from even the very beginning estimate. So moving into the construction side, so lines 13 and
I have
below.
a question first.
Yes, sir.
On the parking, why is it 0?
Say that one more time. On the what?
Paving, why is it 0?
Paving is in, I can't speak for it, but I would imagine paving is included in the site improvements or base site work.
Okay, then it should notify that then, so we can express the line item.
Correct. So a lot of these, go ahead.
Just add a note to where it
Yeah,
says paving
That's
and
what
say included
Instead
in,
of zero,
Yes.
right, included.
okay.
Included in above, yeah. And all of those things, right? The temporary septic, exterior improvements, utilities, there's not $0 of utility work. It's just included in above. So all those line items. So this is a full, we're not excluding or being tricky with any of these numbers. It's just all included in above. And you'll see some of that even down when you look at structural steel, line 16 on this Google Doc. Structural steel, and then you see line 17, metal fabrications. Metal fabrications or miscellaneous metals is typically your handrails, the stairs, any ladders, small pieces and parts of steel, which makes sense why it's called miscellaneous metals or metal fabrications. It's not that there's zero. You still have metal stairs and metal handrails in your school. It's just lumped in above. So it's included in steel above. So back on row N, column N, rather, and option number 1. So moving into the vertical construction now, again, we can do a conceptual takeoff of concrete, understanding typical slab thicknesses, typical bearing assumptions, soil bearing conditions. Your foundations are not piles, they're strip footings. These are just kind of simple things that we can go through. So the concrete in option 1 was taken off. There's no real detail to really get into it, and I'll field questions either at the end or as we go through. It's up to the committee. Masonry is limited to the gymnasium, is limited to the stair tower, and is limited at the exterior. So there's an exterior veneer. So where we are adding to the existing school, where it's more of a true addition, like we will have a masonry veneer to match existing at those locations. The large addition off the back, which is the 2-story addition, that's going to have splashes of masonry with the predominant siding of another material, whether it's Hardy board or some sort of cementitious board. Hardy's like a Kleenex, right? So Hardy's a brand name, but some sort of cementitious product for siding, or if it's a metal ribbed product, whatever it may be, that's mostly what's happening in the back. So masonry or concrete masonry units or brick, whatever, that is limited to the gymnasium walls, the stairwell walls, elevator walls, and then also the exterior veneer. The structural system, how the buildings are standing up in the additions, is a structural steel frame, columns, beams, joists, and metal deck, right? So the traditional commercial construction for the addition. And then we have an allowance of $4 or $5 off the top of my head. I can't remember the exact number, over the existing facility. So we get into the existing facility and we introduce new loads, or Banwell and their structural engineer is allowed to do code analysis. There may need to be some improvements to that structure. And we have done that. So we've carried an allowance for some sort of structural improvements in the existing facility. Rough carpentry, finished carpentry, there's not really much to take off. So a lot of those are sort of allowances. Everything's an allowance, but it's more of like $1 a square foot, and that's based on historical data. So it's not a complete guess, but there's not a lot to get definition here. So lots of square foot metrics for rough carpentry, finished carpentry. Millwork is the same thing, where we've assumed millwork in all classrooms at X linear feet times some dollar value per linear foot, and we can get into it. Thermal and moisture, this is something that when Roger opens it up and shows the then to now, I want to highlight something then to now. So meaning the 2021 version versus this version. This will be one line item out of many that you'll see a difference. You'll see a fluctuation. This one happens to be significantly lower than the last time. And it's really simply because of how we did the estimate. So one division may be lower or higher than what was done previously. It doesn't necessarily mean something drastically changed or we forgot something. It just means that when we did as an example, the exterior wall assembly. So in division, whatever, now it's in drywall, line 32, that drywall number will have an interior layer of drywall, the exterior metal stud framing. It'll have the exterior cavity insulation. It will have the exterior sheathing. It will have an exterior vapor barrier, or a weather barrier rather. So those systems a lot of times can be broken up in different divisions, different categories. It just so happens when we took this off, we lumped it as a system and put it into that location. So the weather barrier on the exterior typically is found in thermal and moisture. So when you see things drop or go up, it could be because there are other products included in that. So it's not necessarily, how can this be double? That's I will answer all those questions, but just understand that it's not just something just doubled or something just cut in half. Insulation is what it is. Siding and shingles. That siding and shingles is really for the rear addition. All other siding, quote unquote, is masonry in option 1. Roofing is roofing. There are some skylights included in there. It's a membrane, it's a built up, there's insulation, probably a vapor barrier insulation, and then a membrane roof system. That is what we have there. Sealants and caulking, nothing, who cares about that. Doors and frames, I'd like to stop there for doors and frames. We can count doors, but what we did was really sort of take, for every 500 square feet, we put a door in. Because they're not in the schematic design, every door is not shown. So for every 500 square feet, we assumed a door, and for every door, we said it was $2,000. And everybody's like, oh, $2,000, how can that be? Well, a welded frame's $250. The door slab itself without a window is $550. The commercial classroom hardware is $650 a piece. So you start to add those up, and you can see how quickly you can get to a $2,000 bill per each to handle it, install it, buy it, and then get it to operate and key it, etc. So doors and frames, that's sort of how we got there. Special doors, I don't even know what that is right now off the top of my head. It could be an overhead door, at the warehouse, at the maintenance area. Doors and windows, storefront is something that our estimator took off. Windows are fiberglass windows that are punched openings. The drywall is what that is stating, right? So that's your exterior and interior drywall partitions. Most, like the high abuse areas, have a double layer of drywall on one side and a single layer on the other. So corridor side would have a double layer of rock, that's a slang, of drywall on the inside, in a high abuse drywall product on the finish side of the core.
Hey, Matt, we're 13 minutes into option 1, just matter of time.
I'm already 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Okay. So wood flooring at the gym, resilient flooring, that's your carpet flooring everywhere else. Paint specialty. So down below we'll have the kitchen equipment, athletic equipment. I have some, so for the backboards that are in the gymnasium. Conveying systems, that is your elevators, and then fire suppression, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. those are all sort of metrics, square foot metrics that we're seeing today that generally comply or reference whatever the narrative that was provided. It may not be 100% perfect, but the narrative was published. We referenced that, and these are square footages. Allowances, that's I don't remember the small value, but there's library casework in that $140,000. That's the majority of that value. Existing demolition, so 406,700. That is what I'm going to call like a white glove demolition number. So when we get into the existing facility, we're going to have to demolish load bearing CMU walls. That's not that brute force demo number that you can get. And included in that is temporary shoring of the structure while we remove that load bearing wall and then reinsert a steel beam or whatever may come down the road. We don't know. So that's more of a, what I'm going to call a white glove demolition number to renovate, heavily renovate the interior of the existing facility. And then general conditions, that is the time, the people, the trailers, to have, 3 superintendents operate this facility with trailers and all the people and parts and management. General requirements typically are your things that support construction, right? So your lifts, your lulls, which are equipment to move product around, temporary toilets, temporary electric, winter conditions for temporary heating and all that sort of stuff. And
now,
then
what's your duration for option 1?
So option 1, we're probably what Dan Riley, who is our VP of operations here at DEW, helped me walk through a timeline. And he was hovering around 28 months. So we would turn this over. We would start in March of 25, and we would end December 31 of 27.
Awesome.
And then the impact. So the stuff down below, those are all percentages that would be, they're just percentages. And that's, we can go through each one of them individually or just understand that they're self-explanatory at some level, and then they're multiplied by the percentages up above. The contingencies that are here, the construction contingency is something that carries through into the contract that is still the district's money, but it's included in our contract when we go into construction. Lines 61 and 62, the escalation and design contingency may or may not happen. It's just really what's going to happen in the future and what's not drawn, right? We don't know what's not drawn, but there's something not drawn. So this money is to sort of offset stuff we can't see or predict yet until the engineers and architects get involved. The performance and payment bond is something that you're going to require of DEW. The estimate contingency is what errors did I have or did our team have, right? So that's really just an error. So we have 1.6, 1.6, and 2.4. I'm not going to do that math real quick, but Roger can. 2, 3,
5.688.
Yeah, $5.7 million rounded. That is what we miss. So there's some significant contingencies built into this estimate, and then the rest is all stuff. Sub default is just insurance, whether it's that or something else. It's just insurance to protect the district's investment, and then all in, our construction cost is what 40 what 41? Yeah, 41.1.
You want to go through option 2?
Yeah, so option 2 is very different. We're not renovating. We're essentially demolishing your existing facility and building all new. This one is going to be a little more complicated because we have to keep your systems and school operating while we try to build this all new school. So there's some complexity to this. But it makes sense that your concrete is more because you're pouring more concrete, you have more foundations, more footprint. Masonry is down because we're not skinning, right? The veneer of some of the additions is not masonry. It'll be more on the siding side of it. So it makes sense that that's down. Steel, well, you're building an all new school, so it makes sense that it's all up. You know, it's almost 100% new school with the exception of the multi-purpose room. So that's why that's up, and that's again same structural system as the option one. Rough carpentry and finish and millwork, again, those are all the same thing. It's just a multiplier, square foot multiplier. Thermal and moisture, same thing. It's just how we took it off. Insulation, whatever. The siding is the same here, and that's the same because there's still some money up in masonry. It's just how it was taken off. So don't worry that it's the same number, even though we're more than double the area to side. Roofing, you have less of a roof area, which is why that number's down. There's less roof area than there is on the other one. By about, I think, don't quote me, but it's like 30,000 square feet smaller roof area with the second addition, which is why this number is smaller. Sealants and caulking, doors and frames, same concept, right? It's a 500 square feet per door. Special doors, storefront windows, they're all kind of the same. We're intending that while the addition may be slightly larger, it doesn't always necessarily mean that there's more or less windows. We think the windows will be about the same for both. Drywall went way up because you're framing more. The terrazzo and tile, whatever. It's just some bathrooms. Acoustical ceiling tiles, wood flooring, resilient. Talked about all that. Paint will go down because you're painting drywall and not having to do a block filler and some of the masonry of the existing conditions. Is a little more finesse. It's easier to paint new than it is to paint existing. Not significantly different, but it is different. Athletic, that's all the same. Conveying is all the same. Fire suppression. So fire suppression, the difference between the two, all new is a little easier to install. Anybody that getting into a renovation will say like, well, it's just going to take me a little longer to do it. And in general, that's sort of true. So there's a few, I think it's like 50 cents difference per square foot between option one and option two. All of it, both situations has a brand new fire suppression system installed throughout. It's just that there's a little easier to do a brand new facility. Plumbing, square foot number, HVAC, square foot number, electrical square foot.
I've got a question on that. Is that heating and cooling?
It is, yes.
What kind of system did we decide to go with?
We went with full dehumidification in the entire building in AC and office, libraries, and special services areas.
Right.
Okay, so it won't be quite like AC in the main building, but it will be cooler
Significant.
than it would normally be.
Other schools with dehumidification told me they think it's AC.
Okay, and better airflow and more natural air coming in, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay, cool, thanks, just checking.
And then the demolition, I guess I should note this in both locations. The demolition for option two is almost the entire building, with the exception being the multi-purpose room. The foundations, walls, everything goes away. What's not included in option one or option two for demolition is hazardous material abatement removal, which is in Roger's calculations. And then the same thing down below. So general conditions, we think this is going to take a little longer. So I believe, these are calculations as well. This is 5.5% for general conditions, and then 1.5% for general requirements. That's where those numbers came from. But in general, we believe they're both going to be somewhat similar, plus or minus a couple of months. I think the fastest one will be option one, with option two being again, it's right there. They're neck and neck, according to Dan Riley, who's got the brains to really sort of work through this. But I think option one's going to be the easiest. The other thing that option one does versus option two, which is down below Roger's soft cost, is the temporary trailers. We believe, DEW believes, that option one will have the fewest amount of temporary classrooms, temporary facilities on campus. And therefore you'll see a difference in cost for modulars between option 1 and option 2. Because option 2, if you can imagine it, while we're going to build the back. In either case, we build the back first, we create the swing space. And I did a classroom count to make sure that what you currently have and how the addition will work, and being able to swing through and work through the space, you still have the same number, if not more, classrooms available to you to allow us to work through the facility in either case, right? But we think the classrooms are going to happen more in the temporary classroom situation is going to be more prevalent in the second option versus the first. And then so when we build the back as swing space, let's just pretend we're in option 2, which is an all new school. The multi-purpose room and your kitchen and gym has to be functional. The back gets built, and now we're trying to build in the heart. How do you connect the back to the front? Well, now we're gonna have to create this link that goes around this corridor. Think of like an airport sort of terminal or something where you have this connex, and you're going to sort of have to walk around this corridor. And so there's more temporary infrastructure necessary for option 2. Now, I'm sure I'm way over my 20 minutes. I apologize, but I'm done.
Good work.
I have a question now. For the point for this committee. The time for option 1 to complete and the time for option 2 to make it real easy for the committee.
I think you said it's within 2 months.
Yeah, they're both within 28, 30 months.
30 months.
Yeah, 20. I would say you're 26 to 30 months. You're in that range with the fastest, most likely fastest. What's assumed in this estimate is middle of the road, 28 months. So if it's 26 months, there's money coming back to you, right? The general conditions and general requirements, that's kind of based on time.
We need that for the school board.
Do we need is the portables that are there for the 2 school years included in this cost, or is that a different item?
Line 97.
Okay.
97.
97 is for how, that's assuming that time period, the 2 school years or 3 school years. What is your assumption?
It is half one, right? So you're March of 25 to December of 27. And in option 1,
Oh,
You've got
In option
space
one.
getting ready.
yeah.
option 1, I don't believe we need any temporary classrooms. I think what happens is the very tail end, summer of 27 to December of 27, we have to have some administrative type functions outside the school so we can get how we're going to work through it is, kind of moving back to the front door. We're starting in the back, moving to the front door, if you will. And the last effort is that front door. So I think the administration will be the ones impacted, which is my goal. Sorry for all administrators in the room, but my goal is to disrupt you and not the students.
So I just want to clarify, option 1, we're not using portable structures until the tail end of the project and only for admin. You think you can do the reno addition without putting students in temporary structures? Option 2, we're looking at temporary structures beginning of project all the way through, or something like that, and for student use.
Yeah, it won't be probably the very beginning. It'll be once that back addition, and I know you can't see this. I'm not even gonna show you. It's gonna be too small. But once that back addition is built, so I won't need the classrooms throughout the entire duration for option 2. I think the temporary classrooms will come in once that back area is built, the swing space. That's when in option 2, I may have to plug in some modulars classrooms off of it. So it's still controlled, right? There's still a corridor connecting from the temporary classrooms to the building. So there's no safety issue. But I think so a year after we start, plus or minus 14 months after we start, whatever, that's when the modular classrooms will have to come in to allow us to demolish essentially the rest of the facility so we can build in the heart of this campus.
So about a year.
And
Yeah.
hazmat, I saw you're not carrying the hazmat cost, but Roger, you have those.
Yeah, I can go
And
over.
so,
owner
because I know
items.
we have the asbestos. and-
My other
Yeah.
question is too, is that, where did the bond expense come from? The SAU?
This is our owner's cost here, John. Matt, is all of the soft costs here on down are going to be our owner's expenses. Everything here above is either site civil or the construction manager. So I can go over our soft cost expenses unless we have any more questions for Matt.
Yes. So are you referring to the performance and payment bond, the PMP bond in line 64?
Yeah, where does that come from?
That comes,
Standard?
that comes from me, and that's not part of the SAU bond, right? So that is a,
Okay.
that is a guarantee that if DEW goes out of business, our bonding agent will come in and finish the work on your behalf.
Okay.
No
All right.
additional funds for you. And I apologize if I'm yelling. I feel like I'm yelling, but I don't know how, if my
Oh,
mic.
it's great. It's great for the room. Matt,
Okay.
you did a great job. Thank you.
On the quotes that you issued, are those parts and labor, or are those just the parts for each line item?
Say that one more time. The question one more
For the
time.
higher rows, I think it's in the 30s and 40s, of these, we say like plumbing on line 45, is that parts and labor, or is that just the parts?
Yeah, so that would be labor, material, insurances for that subcontractor, all the management for that subcontractor to perform the scope of work within that division.
So
Yeah, thank you. And why is the contingency different for option one, option two? Earlier, I think we were told it would be a different number, but they're the same percentage.
Same percentage, just different numbers.
Okay, I guess I was thinking, I thought earlier we were told it would be higher for the one that had renovation because it was more unknown.
That is a fair statement. And sometimes there is, but that's not how we're doing it currently. Now, if further conversations, we want to have some additional contingencies and we want to lower the all new and we want to keep, like we may want to talk about the estimate contingency, right? So there's going to be more. So option one, I guess I'm going to say this. Option one is going to have more safeguards, and I don't want to use that. I don't want safeguards is tough. There's going to be more ability for the district to control costs with a renovation because you have walls and rooms and flooring and lighting kind of already there. So there's a little more backup safety there. But you're right in that typically in renovations, you do get a higher percentage. So we could take that estimate contingency and leave it alone at 7.5% on one, and you may be able to lower it on option two. Or we can lower it altogether. Like this is the conversation that we can all have together. This is not my way or no way, right? And so we just want to make sure that we all understand the rules, but understand the implications, the risk, before we present anything to any school board or voters, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is, are the radiant tiles included in the HVAC line, or is that in the acoustic tiling line?
The radiant tiles?
You still doing that?
So we've proposed
would be an
radiant
HVAC normally.
panels. Matt, you might not have that level of detail as far as the radiant panels, but we're including radiant panels in classrooms rather than the fin tube radiation on the floor. So that would be included in the HVAC line. Can you just
Yes.
confirm that?
Yes. That's where it
Thank
would
you.
go. Yep.
My other question is this, is the energy gonna be propane?
Yes.
Okay, couldn't get anywhere with gas? Not natural gas.
We don't have natural gas on this side of the,
Okay.
of Amherst.
That's unfortunate.
John was able to bring it to Souhegan.
John, good work. I love natural gas over there.
Quick
Well,
question
that's when-
regarding
That's when National
furnishings.
Gas was friendly company.
Quick question regarding furnishings. I see, Matt, that you have furnishings in the building construction cost. I don't see a line item in the soft cost, so I think between you and Roger, you guys probably established a number, but I'm not sure. So I just
Yeah.
wanna,
So I'll clarify that for you, Brad. So in our number up above, we have 250 seats of bleachers and some entrance mats in our number. And then exterior window treatments or even interior window treatments, blinds. Those are in Roger's numbers.
Electrical, is that in Roger's numbers too, or yours?
No, we have electrical on line 47, John. It's 3.1.
Okay, I see it. All right, I'm just blind with the small print.
Roger,
Sorry.
what's included in the millwork? Like
Millwork is just an assumption right now, but that's going to be like storage countertops within classroom spaces, built-in work-ins within office areas that are needed as
The
well.
cubbies are wood, we said.
Cubbies are what we're carrying on our side.
Okay.
Cubbies are included. It's just we're carrying cubbies. They're more just storage countertops.
Does that include window treatment inside the building?
We're window treatments on our end rather than having W carry that.
And then regarding like the storefront windows, glazing, is glazing interior like windows within the building?
Yes,
Versus exterior?
yes.
Okay. 'Cause
We
that's
have
a
all, yeah, we have all glazing, and then we have school guard glass, you know, the more protective glazing, limited to sort of key entry points and secure entry points. And I forget what the square footage was we assumed, but it's included in one of those numbers.
So
Yeah.
when you say the more secure, that's where it could take some impact and not be bulletproof, but be
Correct.
less likely to be.
It was a couple. of
Yeah, you can shoot through
We
it.
need a
but
bigger
you
bullet.
cannot- you could shoot through it, but it delays forced entry for about 12 minutes.
That's actually impressive.
We've used it at some of our buildings already.
And then just one last question about the exterior. For, I guess, the addition and new, is it dense glass and not on the exterior? And then your wall material, your facade material and not sheathing like plywood or zip system?
Yeah,
Matt, do you
Yeah,
hear
what
that?
what-
Brad?
do you want me to take that?
yeah, go ahead. Sure, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, okay. So what we called out for in the scoping was for a concrete masonry unit, that ground faced masonry wainscot for the additions, and then a dens element, which is very much like the dens glass. It's a air and water barrier, as it were, with insulation outside of that, and then essentially hardy plank, which is a fiber cement board outside of that, because we were going for a cost effective siding, as opposed to doing brick everywhere.
Okay, is that that dense product is like it rated? An hourly rating?
I think you can get it that way, but it's not required by code to
I
have.
was just asking, I was just curious
Correct.
about that. Okay,
You can get it in a fire rated product. It's not a big jump up for that, but you don't need it in this application.
that's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's fine.
The exception to what I just said was for the gym is all masonry for obvious reasons. It just takes a lot more abuse. So it's a CMU wall with a masonry exterior.
Okay.
And we do
What's
have
the roofing, what's
all
the
the
roofing
ratings necessary
material?
inside. Oh, sorry, we're talking over somebody. My apologies.
What is the roofing material?
Roofing is a membrane roof, right? So whether it's EPDM or TPO or PVC, whatever, it's a membrane roof. It's a quote unquote flat roof. Nothing's flat, but
Yeah.
right. So it's a flat roof with a membrane roof with built-up insulation below it, moving towards the metal roof deck.
Any stone on top?
No stone on top, no
No
bell.
stone there, okay.
No, exactly.
Pretty much rated.
Sorry, I was passionate about that. No, John.
It's a question because it's gonna be raised.
We have
when we get to a
unfortunate
public.
experience with that.
Awesome.
Very good, my man.
So the only other items on this is just our owner expenses, which I can go through. It's a percentage for the architect's fee. Renovation is 5.6 and 6% for a renovation and 5.6 for a new build. We go off of 5% for the site and civil work as well. We do plan on hiring an owner project manager or clerk of the works. We have 225,000 set aside for that for a 26 to 30-month duration. These are our legal fees as well for both projects. That's just a percentage. We know that we are responsible for moving. We're also responsible for the technology portion of both projects. We're carrying that on our side. We have included a sound system in the NPR. We're planning on 500,000 for both sides for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We are looking at this as we are going to carry over whatever new materials are still good within the existing building to move to the new building. Same with the technology side of it as well.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
does the technology, does that cover like security access, like, badge? access?
Technology is its own line item, and we have a separate line item for security down
Okay.
here.
Oh,
I
I see
do
that.
consider
Okay.
them kind of one and the same because it is networked.
Got
But
it.
we do pick up security on our end,
So technology would be like
like
smart boards
Yeah.
and
projectors.
projectors and.
Switches,
Yeah, the
network,
servers.
servers, everything,
Okay.
yeah, a whole ball of
Okay.
that.
It's
So
really the
a
network.
lot of it moves over, but a few things would have to be new.
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct. All of the wiring for that network obviously would be new as well.
right.
That's included in the electrical portion. Window treatments, kitchen equipment, we are responsible for all of the appliances within the equipment. We have a bond sales expense, we have construction testing. We are planning on doing this by propane because as John mentioned, we don't have natural gas on this side of Amherst yet.
What are we now? Are we-
We're fuel oil now,
I was
believe it
gonna
or
say,
not.
we're oil, right, yeah.
I
I do believe it,
This is
because
our-
most expensive, that's what we are.
Yes, yes. We are going to
Thank
use
you.
caution about what size that ends up being for a final tank, but, we're just looking at caution on what size that is. We're going to have stormwater protection, third-party review. This is where we're carrying abatement of the existing building as well. Talking with the civil engineer, we're most likely going to need a traffic study, so we have a line item for that. We pick up security, which is going to be like the alarm system, lockdown system, video cameras. We're carrying insurance. We're carrying an owner's contingency that is just a percentage based on the overall project. We have miscellaneous and other expenses as well for 200,000 for both sides, so that gives us an owner soft cost of 8.5 and then 8.9 under. This is where we've worked together with DEW. Matt touched upon this. We have 350,000 for administration in option 1, and we're carrying 750 for admin and students in option 2. These are the hard cost subtotals for both projects. These are our soft costs. It's 20% pretty much of the project. And this is our grand total for both sides.
I have a question on the traffic study, Roger.
Yes.
Can we, so the town just did a traffic study as part of the Village Streets project. Are we able to utilize any of that study versus needing to pay for a
Yes,
new one?
yes.
Like, I don't understand.
We certainly can. We're just holding a line item in here in the case that we do have to have a traffic study. We would rather have it in there than remove. It's a $20,000 line item. To your point, I'm sure we can get a lot of that information from the town. But we are carrying that line item there, talking with the civil. It is best to hold that in.
Why do we
there.
need a traffic study?
Yeah,
I mean, talking with Brad from
At
time
this
on, we
stage?
just at this, we just have it accounted for in the need in case we need it.
You're gonna need a traffic study
Is the study,
separate from,
for what study, oh, what we have now?
Why?
separate from.
Because you have a
We-
lot of.
we just-
people-
We just had to do one for a school in Rochester. So and I believe, Roger, this is Ingrid. I believe that was one of the major issues that came up several times at the public forums was traffic.
We already done one?
We
The
haven't done it
town
yet.
has done, so I said 50% of the
I
project.
saw cars per hour and all that fun stuff. I saw
Yeah.
that stuff somewhere
Link out, because.
over the last couple of years.
Is, yeah, I saw that study that the town did. That's just on what is now with the traffic study you're talking about. Would that be what traffic would be if we rerouted traffic a different way, or it's just on what we are now? Roger, do you know?
Ingrid, the traffic study that you did, is it based on the planned project in Rochester, or is it just information?
Yes.
to provide? Okay,
Oh, no, it's if we need a turning lane, if we need a blinking light, etc. And this is a new,
Gotcha.
It-
Thank you.
It was a new school for 400 students and no light was required, but we were required to do a turning lane.
Gotcha.
Awesome. And I did talk with Brad following up with him, and he did mention to hold a traffic study in here along with his site and civil fees as well, so. We did confirm it with civil.
No, I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, but we're using existing roads.
It doesn't matter, you got half of the town. Up there is concerned about the traffic, okay? Has been every meeting we've been to,
It's true.
okay? And that's why we put in that emergency exit at the top, and they even complained about that, and when we told them, well, that's only gonna be used in emergency, you know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You
just,
don't like it.
this is post-vote. I thought all that stuff was done pre-vote to convince people post-vote, but I get it. If you need other stuff, you need other
I
stuff.
think we need it as
Yeah, I just wondered if what was done by the
a
town.
tool
the
to
taxpayer
express to
ability
the
was done.
taxpayer what
That's
we've
different.
done, I think.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I have a question on the total amount of contingency on both the owner and the construction manager. It seems a bit high for this level. Have we looked at what each other is carrying? Are we double dipping here?
Yeah, Ingrid, I think I mean, it's a fair point. I would hate to water down the owner's contingency. But when you do sort of total it all up, Roger, you had it at the bottom, right? Wasn't it like 7 million? And what cells do those click off of? Or sorry, capture. What cells do those capture?
They capture the owner at 10%.
Yep.
And then they capture your 7.5 estimate,
Perfect.
your design contingency, your escalation for 2025, and then your construction contingency.
It does grab the construction contingency. So I think if you were to look at, if I'm looking at this as how much contingency do we have, I would eliminate the 821, but I recognize that it is in fact a contingency. So, and I don't mean eliminate it, I just like for this conversation. So to Ingrid's point, you know, that's a significant amount. It's not, I think it's 15% total, right, of the overall.
You eliminate it on both options, Matt?
Say that one more time.
Would you eliminate it on both options? I just eliminated it on the document and just that changes it to under 7 and under 8. But I guess my question was, would you eliminate that construction contingency for option 1 and option 2?
Yeah, I wouldn't eliminate it. I would just eliminate from your calculation down below. So I would not eliminate it. So what I was talking about is like when I'm looking at this number you have down at the bottom, 7.7 and 8.6, like how does that, as a percentage, how does that feel? To Ingrid's point. I think.
Yeah, but for me, you're still carrying construction contingency, whether or not it's saying it down here at the bottom or not. I mean, to me, that's a contingency. It should be on that line item.
Understood.
That's
Understood.
my opinion.
No, I get.
Yeah,
I
So-
just,
More
I think the
meaningful.
total is just super conservative. So it's a question for the committee. I mean, typically it's a 10% total on a project of this magnitude. And I think we're way over that. So
Yeah, we're
is there
15.
a reason why?
Yeah, we're 15 right now, Ingrid. So, I mean, this is the conversation that we can all go and work towards. Like, once we understand from this committee where you think the board might want to be, and then where the community may want to be, you know, we can work with it to something that's more comfortable. Now, 15% obviously shows there's comfort, right? That's a reasonable number, but there's going to be a point where somebody comes and says, I don't want 50, it's got to be 40. Well, that's not probably attainable, but is 48 the number? Is 45? Like, I don't know, but I think we could probably take a DEW number like the estimate contingency and maybe make it 5% instead of 7.5, and then maybe and see what that looks like. You know, it's very early. Like, there's a concept level. So at concept level, in many instances, we're carrying 15% on that line item, but that's not always with that would include escalation, right? So I think if that was 5, then I think why did that not change much?
It was at 7.5. So there's your 7.5. There's your change to 5.
Yeah. But did it total up at the bottom right? Still looks like it's a 49. Yeah, I guess it didn't move.
It's under 7, it was over 7 before, right?
That's it
Look
now,
at 102, look on N 102 from there.
and then there's the change.
Yeah, I see it.
So Matt, I have a question.
But the grand total's not changed. Do it
Click on
again.
N 102. Roger. That one, yep.
Yeah,
It's
so if you maybe lower your, you know, and again, this is a committee decision, but if you lower, say, your estimate contingency to 5, and then maybe the design contingency goes to 2.5, you know, that's 5% off of the 15%. Now you're down to 10% for your construction contingency, which is more in alignment with what we would expect to see.
What were we carrying before for contingencies last year? And I have a question because we've significantly reduced the size of the project from what we put out last year
Hmm.
on option 2, but our price is essentially the same. So I'm just trying to work out, and I don't see these other lines, but I'm trying to work out where are the differences? You know, where is it coming from? I expected it to look a little different. So is it because we're carrying so much more in contingencies? Is it because cost of materials have gone up that much? And I don't see those other columns in what I have, so I apologize.
So I can pull where we were in 2022. We did not change anything as far as our contingency percentage on the owner side or DEW side. All of these have stayed the same. They're based on a percentage, so they increase or decrease depending on project costs. I can pull this, I'm sorry, this is all of our years' information on different
No,
projects.
that's what I want to see, is great.
But I want,
side would be good.
yeah, so this is what I want to pull. I ran my own takeoff, so I'm gonna hide this column. But this is where we were last year. This is what we were bringing forward. You can see our site work was at 3.5, we moved to 3.7. I mean, that DEW and I felt was very reasonable. We're carrying other general construction costs. If we just go down to these items here. I mean, last year's project, it's important to know we were at 136,000 square feet, and Matt hates when I talk square foot numbers, I know that. But 136,000 square foot building, we were at 30,846. We're at 29,163 for 111, and I think this 31,954 is at 111, 119. So let me just do this so that I help myself a little with this, few threes here, and then as we walk down through. So here, we're carrying the same amount of contingencies. We're at 2.5, 5%, 5%. None of that actually changed because it would have changed this column here. The only edit that I made on the owner's end is because we were always in a new build. Brad actually corrected me, the renovation, because we were proposing that this year, I had to go all the way back to our existing documents, and that's where I did find the 6% there. For the renovation portion. These are our owner's expenses when we go down to the bottom. That has not changed much for us. We were at 8.6, 8.5, 8.8. I mean, those are not accurate. We were at 600,000 for what we were planning on using for this project in L. We were able to reduce this for the amount of what we need to relocate for the renovation, and obviously we're increasing more usage for this build here.
So where did it go up?
Right.
What's the square foot cost on the last year's versus?
17,000.
So let me
That's all the same cost.
So let me pull that. I did, this is, again, this is my own takeoff. Just give me a second. I can pull each thing because this, I'm not in control. And square foot cost there, and then. So we were at 381.99. I'm sorry, I see the minute to get.
Doing great, you're driving like a champ right now. You're cruising.
I I always start sweating when I do this stuff.
With an audience on the stage.
So these are this is. All right, so. Which isn't fair, but what I did is I broke every project down by a square foot. Does that really make sense for site? No, not really, but everything else, I kind of felt that it did make sense as far as. CM fees, and architect fees. So going all the way down to the bottom, I broke, as we travel through, I broke everything down by a square foot cost. What we're looking at here is we are at $381.99 with the 2022 proposed. We're at $446.85 for option one, which we're proposing now. And we are at $456.15 for the option two. And then Matt, I guess this question just goes to you, is what changed in the market or on DEW's side to answer Shannon's question? Is we were building more last year, we were at a lower cost. Can you just walk us through that?
Well,
Sure.
we put on the article was 54,250. That's what was, which I think was the escalation from.
Yes.
The article.
Matt, did
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Nope.
Okay, so the last option that we priced, DEW price was 2021. So 2022 was we can't go, it was a conversation. I had an opinion on what would have changed from 21 to 22. So regardless of that, that's the number that you have. From 2021 to 2023, you can Google this anywhere and you're going to find somewhere construction escalation somewhere between 15 and 20% premium from 2021 to 2023. So there's immediate jump in material and labor. So it's not just material costs have gone up that much, it's labor as well. So there is a difference in material. Now, when you go from 136,295 square feet in option C, so quote unquote last year, right? 136,295, and you want to, let's just pretend we're going to take that project. Forget about option one, forget about option two. We're going to take option C, but we want to cut option C down towards 120,000 or 111,000 square feet. You don't get a dollar for dollar return typically when you cut square footage, because there's still a mechanical system that is required. There is savings, absolutely. But you're going to pick up, you're not getting a dollar for dollar. So I ran an example last night to try to figure out how to explain this. And so if you took 136,295 and you cut 17,000 square feet out of it, roughly, you would be down into dollar for dollar at 381.99 or whatever construction value. I'm only talking construction value. You would be at instead of a 42.8, see that line number 100, 42.8 number. If you were to take that project and cut 17,000 square feet, you should be at a dollar for dollar, 37,515. Now that puts option C in line with options N or R, right? More in that square foot line. But then when you inflate that number in option C from when we last touched it, that I would probably put that number at 43.4 now today. So you reduce option C and then put it in today's dollar, I'd think that would be somewhere in the 43.4 range. So I think what you're chasing, what your community is chasing right now is time. And every year there's 5% or more. You know, when you got into 2020 to 2021 and 22, these escalations were jumping 8 and 10% a year. They're huge jumps, and you're chasing time right now. And so this is the age-old question where, like, when is the right time? How can it be so much more? Why did we not see a significant decrease? You're chasing time. And it's still a very aggressive market right now, and aggressive in a wrong, that's not the right term. It's still a robust, it's a healthy market. Subcontractors are still relatively busy. But even if you wait for when they're not busy, yes, you'll see a decrease, but you're going on time and there's still inflation every year. I
Thank
did,
you.
did I not,
No.
I didn't probably answer it very well, but.
No, I think you did.
Well, we don't
You
love
did.
that reality. It's,
It's an unfortunate
it's an unfortunate reality.
reality.
Yeah.
You did a great job. Thanks for.
Well, and I
for
think
that.
that we can explain the trade-off that in order to keep the cost even close, we had to reduce in scope and size, that
Yeah.
since we weren't able to get it through in the first round, second round, whatever, in order to still keep it within a palatable range, we had to make trade-offs,
I
right?
think I was saying that, 'cause we didn't drive towards a price, right? We built the best school we think that would sit to our needs, and it happens to cost the same as last year.
Well, yeah, but I mean, one of the reasons we chose to keep Clark, which was not our original desire, it was to consolidate and to make this to where we have all our administration in one place, we have all of our kids in one place. We're still bringing fifth grade down, but we decided to keep Clark as a way to help with cost. That was
Right, right.
absolutely
That's
the
true. I
reason.
would say
we
the
chose
cost
that.
didn't come first, it's that we did. a
This
different
is still the
approach.
best school we can build
Within those constraints.
within those constraints, but we kept Clark as the
Even more
thought
saving.
to give savings.
still
And so it's a
trade-off.
trade-off. We're still paying, but it's by keeping Clark that we're even able to keep it to this price.
That's what.
If we got rid of Clark, then the price would go up.
Correct.
So do we have any other questions for Matt and Brad and the team? Because I'd like the committee to be able to have some discussion as well. But do we need them for anything, Steve?
For the school board meeting, is there gonna be questions pertaining to like materials like Johnson, what's the roof? Is there a way to like put like a simple cheat sheet together for the school board when they start asking questions about materials in order to cut costs? I don't know, is that something to think about?
I mean,
So Matt and Brad, you all are attending the meeting next week, correct? Yeah, so they will be there.
It'd just be like.
Yeah, it's,
What would you cut to save $1 million?
Right.
What is the answer to that?
Exactly. Teach.
I'm not gonna blame.
it's, and it's a relatively simple answer, and us being there, I think is gonna help, but I mean, these are both value-oriented design specifications for both options. There's not a big golden ticket magic bullet, hey, I can cut $1 million off if I do X.
The answer is not the gym. We wouldn't say we'd redesign it without a gymnasium. We'd redesign it without something else. That's not an answer you would give.
Well, we could
I-
get,
I-
yeah, I mean, an answer depending on which option everybody's leaning towards, right? You could always look at the renovation side of your existing school. Brad, or the task, I guess, of this project is to sort of create equality throughout the whole school. You're not going to have this brand new sparkling one side and this tired old facility on the other. It's meant to sort of use what you can on the existing facility, but sort of bring the whole facility up. But there could be a play where the design looks at where you do a very light renovation to the existing, and then maybe you have to build more square footage on the back end, but there could be a trade-off to not impact the existing as much.
This is a very careful, balanced design on option one. The level of renovation that we're talking about, the finish replacement, the replacement of the finishes that are in the specifications would have to be done anyway, only due to the level of infrastructure and safety improvements that have to be done to the building as part of the renovation anyway. So it's not like we could just, take out the ceilings as a scope, you know what I mean? Because you're ripping down all the ceilings to do a proper HVAC system with proper ventilation. It's a really integrated design. So, I'm happy to stand there in front of the board and say, look, there's no magic bullet here. This is a value-oriented design. If you want to take out the gym, if you want to take out more square footage, certainly that's something that we could be looking at, but I think it's behooves this committee to point out to the board that you guys have already gone through that exercise of pulling back on some of the program work.
Well, and I mean, I think that the current design for what it would look like for option one is really thoughtful, and you've already taken the notes of what we need for program and for what we need in general. So we've said all along that when you do reno, like you can't just like my daughter just moved into a new house, right? And we're looking at doing some stuff. And I was like, oh, look at all of the plugs you have, because you have a newer house than I do. And when they did it, you have to have more plugs, they're every 6 feet or something, whatever it is. Whereas, in my house, it doesn't look like that but if I were to change one of my rooms, I would have to do that in a room if I changed it, if I updated it. So you always have to go to latest specs. And so I think, and like you say, if we're gonna do new HVAC throughout that kind of work, no matter the rest of it, you do still have to factor that in. So I agree with you that it's a very thoughtful design and it's using everything we can, but some of that stuff is just, it is what it is. You're gonna have
Well,
to
if you
be
guys have-
latest codes.
And I think it's important for you guys to point out that, you've made some pretty significant compromises to the quality of the spaces in this option one design. These classrooms are smaller than you wanted them to be in the existing building. And, it's important for the educators to be able to say, yes, it's a compromise, but it's something we can live with. That's why the building is what it is. And that's why the costs could stay where they are. If the spaces needed to be the size of the program, this building would be significantly more expensive. So, I mean, to say you want to compromise more program, we're going to have to be we're going to need a lot of input from the district as to what else would we take out of this thing? What other compromises are acceptable to the curriculum?
Is technology something that we could live without? That no more smart boards and just do regular whiteboards? That be anything?
We already have those.
We already have what?
Smart boards.
So why buy new ones then?
We're not, I think that's why that number was smaller than it.
We are lower. We're looking at anything
That's a
that can
low-
move to the new building. We are
Right.
going to
What is the line for technology? I thought 78 was smart boards. They said it was
300,000. I think that was not just smart boards, right, Roger?
No,
I mean,
that's
we're adding classrooms.
That's the
We have
technology.
classrooms now with smart boards, but we will have classrooms that don't.
I guess the question is, what can that line be eliminated or reduced or anything? Is it, I'm just trying to. It's helping the question you're asking. I'm
Yeah.
really trying to give you a preview of what a devil advocate will look at, right?
It's not a very, in the scheme of things here, it's not a very big item.
It's under the item, but I just want to make sure that, I mean, to me, my questions are, what is the higher tech stuff? It could be lower tech, right? One cost saving. What is the sort of extra spaces that maybe aren't needed? I mean, the gym comes to mind, right? So having a story for that, I think is really helpful for whatever the next meeting's gonna be, the next week or.
It's the Tuesday, the fifth. So I think that.
Right, and we should kind of work offline, email, and just kind of think of what are the hard questions that might be fair to ask and then get ahead of it.
Some of the contingencies, obviously, when we get to the details, we can save a little bit of money in some of the finishes, maybe we could save money in some of those areas where we can make choices. And so you build in the ability to have it be safe, have it be good, but there's a little bit of flex. So
Right.
those are areas where you try to put a reasonable number, but I think that's where we can whittle down a little bit.
And one other thing is, last year's price isn't really an option anymore. It's like, that's ship to sale, right?
It
So
is what it was. What it was.
You shouldn't judge this by what could have been. You should judge it by what could be. So if we say no to this, what is the next best option? It's going to be something more costly in the future, unless you imagine a clear view of a recession and.
Well, and we've always said from the very beginning that every year we don't do it, it only goes up in cost.
Yeah, I guess it's that.
And that has been true. And I think that bears out here, where even though we reduced in size, we're still about the same price because of that factor that
Right.
it does cost more year over year.
Right, right.
And this just
So that's-
bears that out.
So I'm gonna put Matt on the spot. Because we always ask our construction managers this question at this juncture. If this did not pass a bond vote in 2024, Matt, if there was a 1-year delay, what sort of escalation is your crystal ball telling you right now for a 1-year delay?
You're 3 to 5%.
I'm
With,
sorry, say that
no-
again, Matt?
3 to 5%.
3 to 5% with no programmatic changes.
So everything else being equal,
I'm
no change
surprised
in
to hear
design,
it.
no change in
Yeah,
anything
I'm
else.
surprised and
Okay.
encouraged to hear that the 3 number was even in the range.
But there's got,
I-
I mean, everybody can go look at like, well, CPI this, and CPI is a metric that people look at, of course. But it's not like there are some divisions that jump 20%, like concrete, HVAC, electrical. Those divisions had huge jumps during this since 2020, huge. And there's others that are kind of just generally had stayed stable. They plateaued, then they kind of remained stable. So it's really that number on the whole, so you can't say like, well, lumber went down. Lumber's, I don't care. It's 3 to 5% on the total. And because some of that may be 0 on wood and it may be 10% on the mechanical. So
I mean, lumber skyrocketed for that year and now it's come back down to a somewhat reasonable level.
that's
And I think it's a
correct.
great example of it's just a single factor. There's always something that's gonna go up.
But there's still, I mean, concrete just sent a notice through the other day of, $6 per cubic yard increase on this and fuel surcharge on that. So it just continues to go up. Until there's a horrific economic event in the US, there will not be a recession.
Well, and I think steel has been pretty volatile. I mean, there's always something.
Correct. Yeah, if there's gonna be another war that you can't predict,
Okay,
but I got one more question before I get shut off.
yep.
I don't have anything in my books for next week for a board meeting, so when is the board meeting and where do I go?
It's Tuesday, December 5th at 5:30,
5:30 at Boston Post, the high school?
at Souhegan High School.
Yep.
Okay,
Second floor, Learning Commons.
okay.
You've been to this room before, Matt. Yep.
It wasn't in my calendar, so when you said you guys are gonna be there next week, I panicked because next week is active, but Tuesday is fine.
And you did say
Thank you.
6 PM, correct?
5:30.
5:30.
It's 5:30.
5:30.
We try to be kind to our administrators, so we
And
started
you are
having our
the
meetings
only
earlier.
thing on the agenda.
That's it.
Thank you,
Yeah, so
guys.
what I'd like to do, is let the committee talk and deliberate, and then we'll get back with you and just check in before Tuesday evening. And any final questions for Brad and Matt and Ingrid? Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I just
Appreciate it.
one little housekeeping thing, really quick, and I know Matt needs to jump in, but, we did a PowerPoint for the last school board meeting, which I have updated based on the latest civil information, which I'll resend to Roger, but I believe that PowerPoint document is still pretty good, for the use in the upcoming meeting. We just need to add any cost slides that you think appropriate.
Okay.
So I'll share
Yeah,
that,
great.
I'll
If you
share
can
that
send
around.
To Roger, and then we can
Awesome.
take a look at it.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
my closing statement, if there's something DEW needs to do in advance of this board meeting and the support of this committee, as soon as you guys come out and say, hey, we really love DEW to be ready to answer maybe these 4 questions in the event that they come up. We know the school board has been sort of here already. So just any advance notice, obviously, of those types of questions so that I can prepare and research and support however needed. Just as soon as you know what I need to do for you, let me know.
You got it, Matt. Thank
Thanks, Matt.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Thanks, guys.
We could send a note out to the board and just ask for any general questions they have before we meet to maybe give them a preview.
Okay.
I think we should kind of.
First, I want to get
Well,
a sense of the committee. So I know you guys were having some conversations, so I want to bring those all to the center so that we can
Awesome.
so that we can all hear them, because I was hearing bits and pieces of
Cheers.
really great thoughts and threads. So, Stephen, I'll start with you.
Greg and I were just chatting about I guess the scenario, if you have to give the expectation of this didn't pass. what's the cost gonna be? Like that was like, I think we were thinking like conservative and then extensive, like, yeah, it may be 5%, but it could be 8%. You know, or it could be 3%. Like, there's gotta be a range, like the minimum could be, it's gonna cost an extra 3 million, or it could be an extra 5 million. So you kind of have to show that scenario. If it doesn't pass, we're gonna pay more no matter what, but it could be an exorbitant large amount.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's all if we do roughly the same thing, right? I mean,
Right.
the other options would be. Like, you know, I don't hate to say it, but you know, the patch option, right? Just keep pushing the ball down the road, that kind of thing, right? So. That's reality, that may be the town may be more in favor of that than what, you know, this committee wants, but.
See, you can't argue the gym either, right? I think because the community usage of the gym is a plus for us. And you use that to present the gym anyway, okay? So I don't think taking the gym away is a
winner.
Yeah.
I think we have to remove our physical education program, and we're not doing that.
It's okay,
To remove the gym, we need the gym for physical.
let's be clear, the
education.
gym,
Run the scale, so with
Yeah.
grade levels right now, we are just able to offer specials first through fourth, where there is still an overlap of 10 minutes. of
And music is
lunchtime.
on the stage.
And we're gonna add another grade, you're gonna need another location.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
I mean,
indeed.
the community was very committed to the 30-minute lunch periods because we needed time for kids to eat and socialize. You would be talking about significant programmatic impact.
that's really good, I think that needs to be honest, like Q and A
Yeah.
paper, like why
Well, it should
did
be
that make.
part of the
sense?
slide presentation we're
be.
gonna do to the town.
Get ahead of it and say, here's why the gym is
Important.
essential.
Well, and I
Essential, really, it's not, you can't go school out, really.
Yeah, you would.
So I want to back us up real quick, if you guys don't mind, because we have two options on the table. And I would love to go around and hear everybody's up or down on option 1 or 2. If you were, you know, I'd like to do a little straw poll first, and then we can maybe take a more formal kind of vote on which option. And
Can I
why.
ask one question to Roger? And I should have
We
asked
talked a little first,
before,
we talked before, we had a vote.
Yeah,
before they, I'm just surprised that the timeline is so extensive. That to me, the timeline, I don't know if Roger can kind of put his mind to it, but because I've seen in commercial construction, 10-story buildings go up in a 2-year
26
period.
to 30 months is what we're
So
talking.
I'm just surprised that a single, like, 2-story building is gonna take that long of a time frame.
Well, but you're also
Just
keeping
because they're
school in
working
session.
around.
I wanted to ask that
Well,
question,
not a
are you
new
ready to
build.
go up in the
If
summer?
you're tearing down a building and then building it new. 30 months is a long time for a new school to be.
I should
built.
have asked them, are they gonna be decreasing the work during the school year? To like support, but be less disruptive, is that part of why it's so long?
Roger, can you speak to that? Because you've been through this process before.
It's just, I was pulling up the plans. Here's one plan. This is the renovation. This one is easier because they're looking to build this back portion of the building. They relocate everybody into this portion, which allows them to take other portions of building at the time. Or this is an addition, we're building this addition, and I think we're coming out a little bit more on this side. So it's just the duration, he's able to build this obviously faster. It's just how they're moving through the project.
I honestly can see the renovation taking a little longer, but the new build, if you're doing an entirely new building. And you tear down the old and you're building from scratch, it should take dramatically less time. So that's where that's where
While
I'm
keeping
kind of,
school in session though, I think.
but I mean,
that's-
And I
but
think
you're not using portables, right?
Not for the
No.
whole school, though, they're phasing.
Well, that's
We
phase
should have
one.
had him pull the phasing plan up.
And I'm sure he doesn't have a phasing plan at this point in time. to be
They,
honest
they,
with
they
you.
had
Right,
some
but going
phasing
off of
plans.
last year, which is similar but bigger, right? So last year's plan was similar design wise to this, and I would, right?
The big thing that I can see the difference is for the renovation. Our gymnasium goes into the back here.
One of the gyms in this time.
For the new build, the gymnasium is actually in the core of the building, and I think that just adds to the construction duration.
Well, and we keep all of the kids either in the core that it is right now. And then move them back when that back one is done on the new, and then you know, it's just. I do remember enough about the general plans for how they would phase it through, and at some point, you're keeping some part of what's there already to keep having classes until you're ready to shift everybody, and fifth grade doesn't come down until the whole thing's done. So it's just in order to continue to have school, it's tricky.
Oh, I understand that. It's just the timeline is it's extremely long for me.
But in your estimation, if it was done quicker, would also cost less? Or you
Should.
just going at time only? Should, right?
Should
Yeah.
cost less. I mean, I mean.
Cause maybe
Typically-
that's when they push back at the
I'm
meeting.
gonna start
board
a
meeting.
list of, because of questions that we want, Matt, and glad to be
Yeah.
anything.
Is there any way to condense that timeline?
And what's the cost savings?
You have to relocate kids.
Give me the target.
But it's the open classroom thing, it took 14 months.
Speak up, what do you think?
No, it's 2 years is appropriate for a school. I mean, I think on a clear site, where it's still an active site, you have to keep kids, construction managers separated with fencing. You want that clear separation. You have to be able to have construction vehicles and machines coming in at their own path. They can't be stuck behind buses. I mean, it's creating their own really work site on an existing site,
Which takes time to do that.
which takes time to do that, and you're relocating the kids at the same time.
And Steve, what did you just say? It took 14 months to add?
Yeah, 4 little classrooms, it took 14 months.
Yeah, we did the full Golden Brook renovation was over a 2-year
That was
project.
all addition.
We had to bring in,
14 months.
we had to bring in portables, we had to bring in, power up the portables, we had to remove the portables from the site. The thing about it is to get into the weeds of it, it's so many phases. It's the phase of this. Golden Brook, we bid out 3 phases. You did construction 1, because that's the first part of the building you're going to build. I mean, the thing about it is construction costs will either be saved or expended on how many phases we do. This is phase 1 right here, as we can see. So DEW might say year 1, we're going to build this phase. As we're constructing this phase, they're probably going out to bid for these other portions, depending on how they're going to send it out.
Yeah.
It gets scary because in Golden Brook, for an example, we were $12 million on phase 1. We were supposed to be at $9 million. We ended up saving on phase 2, which ended up making the project go. It's just, it's a conceptual on how we're best planning to go through it, but their duration in my eyes on the existing site, I don't think they're off from what we went through before.
Surprised, I'm very surprised.
Yeah, but if real world examples of other projects are something that we're basing off of, which I think we have to, right? Because we're not doing this in a vacuum of what we wish it was. It's like, well, what does it actually take in other places? And it seems like it's right within the realm of what it's been in other places. I think that putting up a skyscraper.
And I see it in action and I can understand you're moving kids around, but unless you have a construction company that's there every day with the right amount of people, it moves. When you're bouncing people around to different projects, because you're trying to dip in every container, that's where the project stalls.
So,
And that's where we need a contingency in the contract. That project's not done, when they say it's gonna be done, will they get penalized every single
Yeah.
day and move forward?
Allenstown Elementary.
But at the
Brand new
same
school,
time,
school K-8. I think it's over 2 years.
Yeah,
at the
and that
same
is
time, you have,
a new site, right?
you
Yeah,
have,
brand new, like no tear down, just build and then they're gonna demolish the other one afterwards. I think it takes 6 a while, but we can ask them.
as you were saying, you have the experience of certain project managers able to reduce the cost by giving a cost incentive. And you say, if you get that done in a month instead of 2 months, we'll give you $10,000, part of the contract. But at the same time, if they don't do it, you penalize them for $10,000 a day. That's how contracts are written up for construction managers.
All right, we'll let
I
you be
know,
there
I've done it.
at that, when
He's
that
done
part
it.
comes in. We'll invite
It's
you
a
to
high
the
school
table.
that way,
Yeah. Well, okay, so how long did it take to build the annex?
2 years.
Yeah, I think it's just.
A lot of it
schools are
though was,
different
a
animals.
lot of it though was monies. Same as the cost, well, I don't wanna go,
Again, I don't feel like that seems like an unreasonable amount of time personally. I think that from what I hear, what has to happen, that sounds. It's just not the same as like, here's a piece of land and go for it, and you're going straight up. It's just
So
different things.
we passed this in March, we get the bond in July, Amy, is that right? when will we get the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank money? Is that June or July?
Or if it passed
It
in
passed
March.
in March.
When can we break ground, right? Is that what you're kind of asking?
It takes
Well,
a year.
He's saying we start, I'm trying to look back, he
Way
said
to
we
break
start,
ground.
we start portables in March of 25.
Not portables, we start,
That's what he said, portables.
was it just,
It depends on which option you're looking at.
So I'm trying to understand, we get the money, we pass in March, we get the money in July, is that when we get the bond sale?
Yes.
Okay, and then they don't, then are they supposed to be starting that,
Like, what's starting mean?
the site work and all the
No,
non-destructive stuff?
they have to create.
They have to go into full design concept. Right now, we just have conceptual designs, so.
It takes a
it's-
year
It's gonna be a
usually
year.
to get all the permitting and to get all the designs done and all
Okay,
everything.
that starts
That's
in
why
like
it's
July,
March
August, something
Well,
like
they'll
that.
start right away.
And then,
If it
oh, they
appears.
did it in March, I see.
As soon as
Okay.
it
So, and then I
And
think
then
they
next
said,
March is one, that's why we
That's
portables in March, okay.
yeah, and then you build, then you break
Well,
ground.
unfortunately, the end portable date is the December break, it's 27, so it's not like we're like 2 months in school, we're getting forced their hand to say do it 2 months sooner, we're talking like. What is that, like 4 months after school starts?
Roger, can you throw option 2 up, please?
Here's option 2 right here.
No,
No,
the drawing,
The
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
floor plan,
Here's option 2.
okay. Did we have a phasing for that one too, did we?
We do not have a phasing plan for these yet. The only thing we have a phasing for is the 2021 project.
I
all
think
we
it
have
would be
right now in the
similar.
way of phasing is their estimate of 26 to 30 months, but they haven't given us a phasing plan yet.
For both projects though, John, they're looking at building this back portion.
Yes,
first.
that's what I was saying, yes.
Yeah, they're
Right.
looking to build this back portion and whatever we can do on the site at that same time.
Yeah,
So looking at this is an active site, we would pretty much hand the whole back half of the property off to construction manager. The good thing about it is we are creating a site road, which would give them a construction access.
yeah,
so can we talk about the contingencies? I would be more comfortable having it closer to the 10% than the 15.
So if we talk about contingencies, my own personal opinion is I feel that the owner is protected at 10%, us having us there. If we were to push back on contingencies, it would be on the construction manager side.
And I think they said they were comfortable with that,
Cause I didn't change it, he says his estimate contingency, talking through, he said he felt fine moving that to 5%.
and I think one other, he said 2.5, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Which other was at 2.5? We're already at,
design contingency.
Yeah,
so if we went to 2.5 here
Yeah, that's what Brad said.
and 5% on
and
that.
5% on estimate,
And I feel like Ingrid has always been more like conservative, so she
Yeah.
hasn't thought.
So if she's feeling comfortable with that, I'm feeling comfortable with that.
and then that drops them down to these numbers here. Let me just. So it's 432 a square foot, 440.
That's a lot better, that's the 10, yeah, that's 10%.
I'm only one opinion, but that's from their informed recommendations, I'm comfortable
Is
with
there
that.
any difference in the owner monies and the DW money, or is it all gonna like be bonded and all
Bond,
that? Okay,
giant bonds.
so all, basically double all those costs to get the total
Add
cost to the homeowner.
And
them all together.
I mean, double, because the interest rate is gonna be, the whole interest is gonna be about
Oh,
double.
sorry,
The
sorry.
total interest paid is about even to the amount of the
Sorry, now you're
project.
talking about the.
We're doing 25 at 5 1/4, 5 1/2, something like that.
Gotcha.
So there's no, I thought maybe we'd save money if we took on more. Like, so Roger, we take on ownership of stuff, that saves us on fee, we're not paying fee on that. That's a big advantage, right?
you lost me.
Okay, we're paying them
When you move something
Cost
to our column
plus
versus
fee.
theirs.
when they do stuff for us, so by taking the window finishings and doing it.
Oh, yeah,
ourselves, We're saving that 5%.
We're saving that. That's why we're carrying security technology. That's why we're pulling all of these line items.
I love that. I absolutely love that you're doing that, Roger. I think that's really over above responsible.
Well, it's because if we put it in their part, that increases everything on their end,
Exactly.
and I mean.
Exactly. We're paying for nothing. We're just giving them more fee.
But this is where myself, this individual right here, our technology director, our nutritional services director, they're all a part of this. We need to design a kitchen. Brian has to have his outlook of where does he see technology within the platforms. I mean, same with security, we need to work together with all administrators, SAU to figure out what are we putting into the building.
Well, and again, if anything that we have been purchasing, we've been purchasing with the thought it could move to a new space if we
Right,
needed to.
right.
So we've been doing that for the past,
And buying that cash, not
several
buying
years.
5%
That's right.
interest, which is great.
so wherever we can, we have been planning accordingly.
Are we ready to talk options?
I think
I
one
know,
more
that's why,
last,
because I know.
sorry, I-
No,
I-
that's the time
To
to start, right?
change, I want to change from the layout to like, sort of what we think is going to switch a third of the no voters to yes voters. And I know a lot of people around this table said before, it's the cost, right? It's a cost limitation, and the design is sort of secondary to voters' minds. I never agree with that perspective, but I know that's been a lot of people's minds. This is the same cost. I mean, it's like, Jesus, what is the story there? If you really believe that people are voting no because of cost, and we're going into the same cost, that it doesn't make sense. I think that's why I've been arguing for a long time, being transparent, having a good story, having a good plan, being, having the process followed, is what we want to see. So in my view, this has done a lot better job in previous years. So I think in my worldview, this is good for passing, but people who have previously said it's cost, what do you all say now about why would this pass?
Well, I look at it, the cost now of a new building is the same what we quoted 2 years ago. And if you don't go for the new building, you're crazy.
Well,
Insult may work, okay, that's one strategy.
I think that what we're saying is one of the things that came back last year was people were uncomfortable that we had not gone quite as detailed on what would it be for more than one option. They felt like I only have one option and they felt uncomfortable with that because we hadn't gone quite as deep on both.
But the other option was there was too many articles
There were a lot of things going on at the same time. It's true.
at the same time. So the options, the voter says, 2 bonds? What you talking about, guys?
No, and I think that's fair, but I do think
No,
that,
It is fair. It's how the voters think.
oh, agreed.
Okay?
But I think it certainly didn't help us.
No, it didn't.
But I think that saying we weren't lying, that it does get more expensive year over year. And in order to still keep it within reason, we had to make trade-offs, like keeping Clark. I think that that's one thing. I think that saying, listen, we really have gone deeper in costing it out. And saying not just it would be about the same. It's like, no, here it is line item by line item, what it would cost for these two things, and a more fully thought out, here's what less new construction versus more would cost, and they are legitimately very, very similar and not just a strong informed guesstimate. So I think that that is a message that we can share, where I think that was something that voters felt like, I don't really have options, and that seems high to me. And don't just tell me, yeah, it is what it is. It's like, here you go, line item by line item, here's what it is.
We didn't have the line detail on the Reno edition, so that's one thing, but I think you raise a really valid point, Greg, in that, a lot of the feedback last year was around cost. And here we are with a smaller building and the same cost, which was kind of the question I was driving at with Matt. So I do think that's a fair question, and I think we do have to do a better job telling the story, and I feel like you might have some ideas or thoughts. So
I do.
I'd love to hear them.
Okay, so it's like only work on me and Amy, but what we work on, maybe I can tell you another story, is this actually costs less than last year. Because the dollar isn't like a centimeter, it doesn't like stay the same every year, right? So this is actually, if you think inflation's 5%, your paycheck went up 5% this year, Amherst resident, hopefully, mine didn't, but hopefully we can make that case. Then you can say, well, this is not $1,000 a month of the year, this is $800 a year, so that we save you whatever, 20%, 5%, whatever that you can make you believe.
You're showing the cost.
The dollar,
We have to show
yeah,
them what
so
it's
it's called
Yeah,
real,
Is that what
it's
this
called
does?
real versus current money, right? So the real cost is like adjusted for the value of the dollar decreasing over time, or in this case. So that's a pretty, I don't know, Amy, that work on you at least? Talking about time adjusted costs, is that?
I think it's important.
perspective in the public domain.
I think it's important because I think in a voter, they're gonna be like, wait a minute, it was 54 million on the ballot last year, and if,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
right.
they're gonna-
Yeah.
That's the
It's,
quick.
this is 50 million, 2023 dollars, which is the same as like $45,000 million in 2023. So we saved you money by doing a better job. And it's more compliant with the size requirements for the state funding. There's a lot of improvements in this design. I mean, I'll write up my own thoughts. I mean, I'll do them on bullet point, at the unanswered questions I might ask. But I think that's a hard selling point. I think if everyone else that I don't see people switching over that little bit of that nuanced argument, because people don't understand that argument when I say it about any other price in the world. So
So then
good
what do you
luck.
think? would
I don't know.
change people's minds?
What
I
would
mean,
you-
the only way to change it if you guys are wrong on why they voted no. I think if they didn't vote no on cost only, there's a lot of positive improvements this year. I think we can still do a better job. I talked this morning with Mike about sort of matching the requirements that were generated 7 years ago, or whatever, and consistent, and then modify a little bit and saying like this matches exactly what was said, right? We've all had a lot of different people from town have had input on it. We've got a good company. I think there's a lot of process improvement
Yeah,
that we can talk about. And then, John's point, like, really, I mean, I would say unless, I wouldn't say you're crazy, I'd say, unless you want to just keep patching and going, this is what it's gonna be. But that is the option, right? It's patch as you go. And it's gonna cost 30 million. You guys have $30 million for the HVAC and capital capabilities. So that's a stink. Whenever they break, if they break next month, we're in a lot of trouble, right?
huge trouble. Please don't, just knock on all the wood that you can, because that's how this goes. So here's kind of what I'm thinking, but I'd like some feedback. So today, as a committee, I'd like us to come to an option where next Tuesday we can say, we had this meeting, we went through the cost, the committee favors option 1 or option 2. Let me finish my thought, and then I want to hear what you're saying, because I'm sure I'm missing something that's important. And then based on how the board meeting goes, if the board decides to move something forward to the ballot, then the next, hit the ground running next day, and where I would really need a lot of support, and Greg, I think you have a lot of good ideas on this, is refining and defining that story and how it overlays with what we've done this year, the processes and the work, like everything you just said, that's when that would need to start happening and getting that out there. So that's where I'm at, but
Mike, can I ask you a question? Is it possible for the board to recommend 2 things go to deliberative, and then at deliberative, we actually bang out which one gets moved to the ballot?
So I have a choice at deliberative, but not.
Deliberative actually deliberates instead of just says, put on the ballot and bring it. Correct.
You can have the town debate, which I can.
That's what I'm asking. It's not typical.
No,
So you warn them.
in my experience, it's not typical. Yeah, put something.
So you don't put both on the warrant. You put one on the warrant, and then you can discuss post option, you can revise the warrant.
Yeah.
So,
You can't put 2 warrants out.
right, but you can put, you can
2
put
warrant articles
this
on-
project on.
The
and you
warrant
can-
is the whole thing.
Okay,
You can't
so
put
let's
2
say we put
warrant
on
articles
option-
on the warrant.
I'll just say Y and Z, not thinking personal, but option Y, the board passes Y, goes to deliberative, the voters say, Y is really stupid, I wanna make it change all the way to Z. The dollar amount and what it's done for, all changes at deliberative.
Yes, you can do
You
that,
can do that, you can amend it.
Amend it both the dollar amount and the wording.
correct. Well,
No,
the wording is the wording.
No,
Word
no,
is the word
you
is
can't
control.
change the intent of, like.
Right, you can't change-
the
Okay,
dollar.
so the
Right, you can't
board,
change the intent, the wording is the wording,
that
but the
might,
wording wouldn't change.
but I just want the board, don't,
Let's go to public hearing.
exactly,
Wording
What's that?
is the project.
exactly, don't, advice from the board, please, for the love of God, do not put in the wording.
But you can
New
recommend.
renovation.
Just put a
Just
building
say
project,
building project at Wilkins, Goodwill.
but
All the way.
I think
So you
that's,
allow
I think
us-
that's
you
fair.
can't
So
change-
there's, if it really looks like a strong preference one way or the other, then we would have that option between public hearing and deliberative to bring it down to the other amount.
Talk to the lawyer and figure out how to do it right, but just leave yourself flexibility.
No, I think that's a fair point.
I don't want to, I don't like feeling
Yeah.
squeezed
So-
at deliberative. I want it to be deliberative. So-
No,
You can help us out.
I think it's an
So
excellent
I'm
point.
interject.
I'm gonna need to talk to bond counsel because the warrant article for the bond is very specific.
Right.
Guys,
And
sorry, Amy's talking and I don't want everybody to miss.
yeah, so Steve's right, we can probably do it, but I'm gonna absolutely need to talk to bond counsel because the warrant for the bond is very specific. And there's a lot of rules, and if you mess it up, then
Whole thing's
you're
cooked.
done.
Yeah.
So having one warrant article with language that fits both options is
May not be possible.
it's probably possible, but I'm not gonna commit until I get bond counsel.
If it's not possible, let's say Y goes on the vote to deliberative, and we say Y is no good. Can we just vote no on Y, don't put it on the ballot, and can we say, here's a petition to put this wording on, which is Z, and we just put it on at deliberative? Is that?
I think
would have
you
to
follow
follow
the
the
community feel like they have some
description.
choice. I
You
think.
can't have a new article.
Yeah.
You'd have a new article, you'd have to follow the petition.
Right,
warrant article
right.
process.
It's gonna be
So
one,
are you,
everything has to be one.
Greg, that you're feeling like you want there to be some option for the community between these two options, or are you talking about something else completely?
That's what I'm
different?
talking about, those two.
About
options.
these two. So
That's the-
what about the?
So you gotta public hearing,
Does
yeah.
not pass.
So we have to
That's
hold it to
public
the fire and say, if you don't follow the public hearing, that's
So
the
that's,
place to
So
do
there's
it.
that public.
that's the
Public
entire,
hearing is
That's what
supposed
the
to
public
that's the
hearing.
entire point.
That
of the
happens
public hearing.
before.
Yeah.
And is that?
advise the
2 minutes
board
per
on what
person?
goes to the warrant.
Yeah,
So
that
you
is-
want that knocked
That would
down,
be the
drag out.
moderator.
It was once. No, it was on by you, I thought the board ran
Oh,
public
for the
hearing.
public hearing, that's
So
true.
that is the point of the public
Yeah.
hearing, is to do that work. And then it officially goes to deliberative.
And the
Problem
board,
is people don't.
the board meeting, right?
It's not a board
No,
meeting.
it's a public hearing. It happens at Sauhegan in the auditorium in
Eh.
January.
And the moderator holds that, runs that meeting?
No,
Who runs the meeting?
the board.
Okay, all right, sorry, I missed that, you're right, thank you.
I'm remembering wrong, okay.
I'm sorry, you said it was a board meeting. It's not a board meeting, it's a public hearing.
Got it, but
Well,
That's
sorry,
that's
yeah,
by the board,
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
board
sorry.
that puts for the warrant.
So
Right,
between public hearing and deliberative, we absolutely take into account what's discussed at public hearing to make adjustments for
In
final.
2020, you guys didn't, ended up not putting anything forward based on the public hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so absolutely, we take into account. So I think that that would be the time for that robust thing to go on, and we could change the wording all the way up into deliberative, right? We just can't after deliberative.
No, it's gonna be.
No,
before they
it has,
deliver.
it has to be posted. And there's all these rules that I have to follow to make sure everything gets noticed and posted, but
But between public hearing
have
and
time.
deliberative,
You
yeah,
have
we,
time.
we could adjust if
just
need be.
based on when newspapers publish and all of that. stuff,
Okay.
So
So you
that
can't,
nobody worries about except me. Like,
You have to because there's legal reasons, yeah.
That you do.
so you can't put both the projects on the ballot.
No,
No.
Choose.
No.
Well, we're gonna find out about that.
You can do a,
Whatever you want.
entirely true. You can say, you could
Well, you
do.
could both
Why can't you just have it?
If option A
It's
does
just
not
not practical.
We did that, we did it with the solar panel warrant, we said, if this doesn't pass, if the solar panel passes, but Article 12 fails in the whole thing.
that was a separate article as regards. to
I think that's
the-
what they're talking
I'm
about.
saying big independent, say,
Well, why
It's
not?
highly unlikely that you would have any shot of receiving the supermajority for either of those.
right.
With two. Oh,
You have to have a super.
So this isn't like you vote, like if you're at an annual school district meeting and everybody was there, you can adjust during the meeting. But you can't hear it, it's the ballot, right? You put two things posted, you have to get 60% on both. You can get
Okay, so
30% on one,
answers the
30% on the other.
question. So you need 60% of the population.
to put it on the
to vote.
ballot.
For either of those
Yeah,
articles,
to be
So you
successful.
wouldn't get any either of
it
them.
would be highly unlikely.
Yeah, okay, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think, I
Thank
think
you,
we,
Which one ever passed made it.
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, but it can't.
Has it passed by 50%?
Yeah.
Which might take a longer debate, but I think $50 million over 30 years, people, instead of taking out your anger at the ballot, let's take it out at deliberative, let's bang this thing out and let's get it figured out in the room with the consensus, and then leave deliberative at 3 AM saying, we've got a plan that everybody's.
Well,
going-
and you
You're
need
talking
to
about 250 people.
So like, here's the thing, I think the hard part is, it's really the time to bang it out, like you're saying, is public hearing, and I go every year and I can tell you there's like 3 people in the room.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Even deliberative get 250 if you're on a good day.
Right,
But if we publicize it and say, this is it.
I'm just trying to think, how do we gotta switch votes, we gotta switch votes, that's
public
the big,
hearing is critical.
big lump. I don't know.
How do you get?
So guys, we
get that
have
message?
a few minutes,
Get
like
people there?
5 minutes.
Okay.
And I want to be respectful of everyone's time and wishes for how we use this time. So, do we have any consensus between 1 and 2, or is our consensus that we really want to present
I
both,
think,
like,
I-
where are we guys?
I think the board needs to vote either 1 or 2 to present to the school board. That's what the school board wants to expect from this committee,
It is.
okay? So I think you need to put it to the vote right here now, 1 or 2.
Well, I mean, I think, speaking as a board member, I would expect to see both. However, I would like to hear from this committee what their recommendation is between the two.
Well, we would show 1 or 2 at the school board and say, and this committee recommends number 1 or number 2.
Well, exactly, and that's what, I think
That's
we're all
what we
saying the
do.
same thing, we're all
Yeah,
saying the
but-
same thing.
But I think this board needs to vote which way you want to go to, so you feel
Yep.
comfortable or uncomfortable.
So,
Yeah, I would like to get a sense.
This is just the
of what group
recommendation
is
part.
Favoring. It's not like, and we can talk through it, we don't have to like,
If you had a choice, you'd want full
Don't-
run over,
don't-
I mean, the full rebuild, right? Over the run out, for the same price thing.
Practically.
I mean, I think there's so many factors. I don't even know if I think they both improve the educational program. I think the smaller class sizes that exist in the Reno are still a challenge for us, but my hope is that the Reno fixtures, furnishings help to address a lot of the concerns there. I think there's some benefit to the Reno in the structure of where classrooms are and where the gym is. Where the gym is more central in the new build versus if it's at the end of the building, there's more students and classrooms at the front of the building in the Reno. I don't know where this committee lands on the number. It felt like the cost was the big driving factor for voters last year, so. I want an improved facility for students and staff, and if that means that the lower number is the direction this needs to go, then that's where I would head.
Okay, thank you.
Here's
Okay.
a question I have,
Can I go?
can I ask one?
but
A really quick question, do we feel like it's kind of like the $9.99 thing, right? It doesn't cost $10, it's $9.99. Well, this one, one of them is under 50,000 by a hair, one is slightly over. Do we feel like cost wise, that magic being slightly under
Yes.
50 would be worth it?
That's where you should just put
That's-
both of them on the back,
No,
you know.
you can't.
I
You're
know,
not
but
going
I
to-
Because then that makes people choose.
No,
But we could do that at public hearing.
no, the school board chooses, we don't.
I know.
We just recommend, gotta remember
But I'm
that.
saying the voters make the
Okay.
choice.
I'm gonna open the
let's
table on
do-
that
let's see.
option.
what's your feeling, Dan?
When I look at the option 1, there's still some rooms that do not meet the state standard for education. That's a problem to me. That should be a problem to the educators too.
Do they
Okay,
not meet the size requirement? I thought we were at the minimum size requirement.
No, we're okay.
They do meet those. state
They meet the requirements.
They didn't meet the program requirements.
Program requirements.
No, we had to, we shaved some space,
Okay.
but we wouldn't have
Okay.
signed off on it unless we all believed that this was an
program
appropriate plan.
requirements, okay.
Okay.
Next year it'll be the state requirements on square footage per person, but because of COVID. You gotta remember that, it went up to 26 square feet, ridiculous. And I look at the numbers. And 49.9, to me, that's 50 million bucks. And then I look at 54 million, $4 million difference in this project.
52, we're down to 52.
Yeah, we reduced it.
Well, whatever. I look at the new construction, to me, is the only way to go.
Oh, it seems like a no-brainer to me too, don't get me wrong, however.
The new construction, for me, the way to go, because we're still gonna have problems with meeting the safety requirements in the old building. And the renovation of the old building is just gonna cost just as much as the new building. So let's put it into a new building and stop band-aiding that school for the last 40 years. I know, because I was on the last building committee, put that's the addition on. And that's the only way we're gonna pass
And you're
this community.
still at it.
Still
Okay,
at
so John is an option 2 guy.
option 2 guy.
All right, who
Thank
else
you.
wants to take a,
I'm option 2.
Steve's option 2?
There's a little difference and you're gonna have more energy efficiency. Everything's gonna be brand new. It makes the most sense for the next
30 years.
you know, 30 to 50 years.
And given the choice between the two, if you pretend those are only two choices, I think that the new bill makes the most sense, but I still think we should understand the Band-Aid costs. I think if that's what it means for over 40 years, that might be the way to improve education and the building, and might not be what everyone wants, but that might be the better option. We should know what that is.
You need Band-Aid, not option one, the
Correct.
patching everything.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I just wanna
It had to choose
understand what you're
two,
not saying, so. You're between these two options, you like option two,
yes.
but I don't feel like that has your full throttle support, because
I think
you're
we still
saying
need
there's
to
another option.
understand what are the impacts, costs and everything else, education, blah, 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 traffic, all that crap. If we just Band-Aid the situation.
Fix
And-
HVAC for 30 million next year
Right.
and
Right, all that
that
has to be laid
stuff,
out,
okay.
yep. Probably worse, the last 2 years, probably a worse option, but we should, not just throw it out before we look at it,
So you just want us to break that down,
yes.
Just to get more recent numbers than maybe we had.
but that's what, I guess I'm confused, because that's option one. Option one is fixing all the things that need to be fixed and adding the space that we need, that's what option one is.
Okay,
It's not, no, don't dismiss me, I wanna have this
No,
discussion with you,
okay.
because I wanna understand.
okay.
Are you talking about phasing it out
Well,
differently,
okay,
or
I
not
think
adding it?
we've heard the board pitch other plans that allegedly fix space
So you're talking about
issues.
portable,
That was the plan the board pitched last March 23rd for 4.86 million or something like that, not counting the 30 million for the capital. If that's a real plan,
I don't think it
it's
was
not a
a,
real plan, we should
plan.
say that publicly as we presented it publicly.
sorry, I thought I had this slide printed out, because what that slide said, it was 4 to 6 portables. It was two different costs, one for a set of 4 classrooms and one for a set of 6 classrooms. And then the next slide said that there were multiple things that they still would have to determine. So it wasn't presented as a plan, it was presented as cost. For portables.
yeah,
I
again, I don't think it was ever
So I'm not
considered a
saying let's not
full-fledged
talk about it,
plan.
but I don't know that that was.
I guess I'm saying, so John made the point that in all of your experience here, 40 years,
Did I include you
the
on?
town has supported
I'm a good guy.
patching
You are a good guy.
the building, the cheaper today option, and then the teachers and principals had to make do. And I think there's an important story there to say, are we, maybe we're at the point now where making do is going to result in a lower educational quality than our peers and our vision for this town.
Educational requirements are gonna be made in the new building, as the old building, it still has restrictions on.
Right,
That's a.
I just wanna,
sentence.
I think that should be part of this public discussion, and say, this is the layout, and say, this is really the alternative, if we don't, so we're gonna put one of these two $50 million plans. The alternative is this, it's still $50 million, it's $30 million for the capital,
Right.
right? It's gonna be another 20 million over the same time frame for portables or for whatever improvements, and you still don't get a suitable gym, you still don't get the 5th grade, all these other things. That, I think, should be laid out and say, this is a real dramatic.
so not as an option, more as a, here's some information. If we don't do
I think prices are best,
What?
right,
Like, I
price-
wonder if that's what their intention was with this last year versus this is the plan.
right. I think prices are really well judged by the next best option,
Oh, right.
and that sounds like
No,
an extreme divergence in these two options.
Oh, so you're,
Like you said, neither
Option.
both did.
Yeah.
I'm option 2.
your
That's
option
the
two,
full,
for that
that's the
question,
full
your option
construction
two,
redo.
however, your option 2, which we're gonna put an option 2 on the ballot, we need to make certain that everybody fully understands what alternatives looked like and why we didn't choose to move those forward.
Yes.
Is that,
Yes.
okay,
correct.
all right, perfect. Christine?
I think I'm option two.
Option 2.
I would feel a lot better if option 2 was 49,99999.
I think Roger's contingency.
Yeah.
We can get down there with construction managers.
I mean,
You click
it's
of the
the
words.
I believe we brought something with a 4 in front,
I did too.
It's the board.
but I can't, I mean, I like
know what's more
space.
important?
Hallway space will be bigger, classrooms will be bigger. I know kids, the more space you have, it's a better feel. I would just like to get it down to
I
4999.
do think there's a case to be made though to move the gym out of the core and over to the side, like where the media center is. I don't think that'll change that.
You know, like a better number to get the 99 on instead of the total headline number is the cost per home. Because if it's like, it's probably more important than have that number than have like $999 per home than, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Like everything that I didn't laugh with in HOP, it was all about tax impact.
yeah.
And we did a $600,000 house, a $400,000 house,
My tax, 5 or 4.
right? And we did we had three different versions of house value and how that would, that was, but here, Amy and I've talked about this a lot. Because of the way the code, like Sauhegan never even appears on your tax bill. It's one tax, that's what's really strange to me, like Amherst, that's why Amherst is so hard. Because Sauhegan is easy, there isn't, it's not on your tax bill, which I couldn't believe.
Included in the rate.
For the
Right.
Amherst, but it's not specifically outlined.
Right, people
It's
think
not
school
detailed.
is us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
We,
the
well, we
portion
had it
of
last year.
Sauhegan
Jeff,
and Amherst,
Jeff
and then
calculator did break
Mount
it out.
Vernon is Mount Vernon
Yeah.
and the portion of Sauhegan.
Jeff calculator did break it out. So if people want to look at how it breaks out, that calculator is a really nice tool.
but trying to look, I think tax impact, to your point, is how it impacts you as a taxpayer, but I would like to get it down,
It's-
499.
It's highly inaccurate.
But I can't
We should
justify
figure it out.
going
Too many variables.
number one when you get everything new, when you get more space for kids. And it's not a significantly enough piece, but I would like to get it down.
Well,
we
and
carry
something
other
that came
stuff
up
in our
when
maintenance budget and
the
stuff?
MEP gentleman was here, whose name is escaping me at the moment.
The Ty, Brett.
No,
Ty
not-
Bond.
No,
Oh.
the other guy,
I feel like it was Keith.
Yeah, that was just on here.
Oh, that guy.
You know, when he was talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
kind of the difference when you're doing the rent-on addition, the difference
Matt?
even in like with the dehumidification in the older section of the.
Yeah,
building,
right.
And you know, like
It's gonna be very different.
it's gonna be different. And so for the cost.
Roger, could we carry other things like in 2 years of operating budgets to equal getting it down to 49.9? I mean, is there like, maybe, I don't know, like, I know that's a lot in your operating budget.
I don't, what do you mean?
Well,
Like,
it
don't
down
put,
to
Like, if we need to
40
cut
get-
3 million off of that, and we say, just say it was smart boards, it's $3 million. Can we add $1 million worth of smart boards in 26 and then
phase
a
them.
million in 27?
you certainly can, it's just you're going to have a certain point in time where that classroom isn't going to have a certain technology and that you.
Well, I mean, something that makes more sense. That wasn't a good example of,
No chairs, for example.
It's like, put $3 million in the bank and put it as a down payment.
well, I mean, you know, we. Well, I mean, honestly,
I'm not kidding when I say anything that we purchase with it in mind, like in the library, we have things that roll and that can roll into
Yeah.
a new space. I mean, we
I mean, the other
really
thing
have
is,
very
That's what, this
thoughtfully.
is back to my thing that I know Steve hates, but like anything you buy cash costs you half as much. It's half off if you can buy, if you raise voluntary funds now,
what it
it's
finished
half
with.
off because you're not bonding it and paying the interest.
Like Hollis Brookline built their auditorium through that. Like, we don't have any auditorium, like Hollis Brookline, even though they got state 80 foot, which was a huge
I know,
controversy.
but that's
But
half
there are
off.
some, but that's an addition.
I mean,
There's
think
nothing
about
here
the,
that's an
Mike's talking
addition.
about the warrant that says cost per your household, right? That number needs to be thought of, but that's the.
If you got somebody who wants to sponsor a piece of this and
I have a good friend,
we'll put,
Terry. I
we'll
think-
put their name on
Friend
it.
Terry.
Change it from Wilkins.
Kathleen.
Change it from, we'll give you 5 million. You want a school, we can name it for 5 million, we'll give you naming rights.
We have a policy about that. We do. We have a policy. We know how to name a building if someone wants to do that. Okay, so, hi, Brett. We're 10 minutes over. I feel like that leaves us at a good spot for right now. I think, Greg, you have a great idea if you have questions or things that, you know, we need to think about. If you just put in Amherst Building and Grounds, that goes to all.
So I don't, that's what I'm, I don't think we're allowed to do that. We have to.
Well, no, we discuss it.
If we discuss it or vote on it, but
Okay.
you have the.
I'll just send it to you.
You
and
can just send it to me.
You can be the one that goes to Beth Jail.
Okay, so feel free to send it to me. We can't deliberate and vote on things in a meeting, but if we're just like planning or having
We go online last year and yet all that was,
or prepare for a meeting. But that's fine, just send it to me. That's cleaner, that's easier. And I would encourage everyone to attend the meeting on Tuesday if you can, it's at 5:30.
You gonna have a slideshow? Pros and cons.
Right.
Yeah.
Banwell did a PowerPoint, I can pull it up real quick.
It's called a PowerPoint. Sorry, I put slideshow in my day.
Some people call it a deck.
Yeah,
When that word started floating around, I was really confused.
Remember foils?
yeah.
I just want to work there.
Slides were foils.
Yeah.
That was an Intel. one
Oh,
of our
yeah,
board
you
members
said
in-
that to me,
You're already on.
okay, thank you.
There's a PowerPoint that Banwell has done, just going through it briefly. It just talks about how we got here, the
Yes.
existing conditions.
Yes,
Their
good.
review, and then it goes just, there's a lot of the existing conditions that Brad will go through quickly. But then it goes down to the HVAC, sprinklers, electrical, fire alarm, talks all about it, the program, us going through the program.
Yeah, option one, option two, okay.
Yeah, here's option one, gets a close-up of the site.
And are those the latest pictures of?
These are
option one or
blank
two?
because these are going to insert, these are the latest pictures of
Okay.
the site. And then these are blank because this is where we'll insert just our portions of it as far as costs and everything. And then he pulls up option two.
Yeah, I think we need to add a slide in there too that talks about program impacts, right? Like a lot of this is mechanical.
Yeah, program
But we
education
should talk about
requirements.
what it's really, what it means in the classroom, what it means.
And I think it can fall after this slide here. He's got a little bit, but doesn't really go into details. But you are on that and, but yes, John, we do.
Awesome, okay, meeting adjourned at 12. Well,